stable in comparison. And it was very scary for me to learn these things. Now, Dylan and I stayed in a relationship. We tried to get married while he was away. We had a prenuptial agreement drafted with his lawyer, Rebecca Zarnecki, and my lawyer, Nick Albuquerque. We attempted multiple times to get married, and we were prevented from doing so. We don't know why. That's a violation of civil rights. The reason this is pertinent is because had the marriage been allowed, I would have been incredibly protected. And the lack of actual legal marriage left me in a space where I was unlawfully thrown out of our home that we shared together. My children lived there as well. And I've remained in a space of houselessness since that time. That was nearly 5 years ago. I work, I'm normal, I'm functioning, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm above average intelligence. And it's incredibly scary to understand that I'm still in this situation 5 years later, but let me explain how it played out. And this is all going to be part of my podcast as well. Some of the more recent stuff I'm not permitted to talk about because the court system has put me under some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not permitting me to discuss it, but it's very, very pertinent. This is a very intense corruption, and it has been this way for quite some time. So let me get back to it. Dylan and I remained together, and he was forced to involve himself in deals while he was in prison. The deals were, if he did X, Y, Z, he would serve 3.5 years rather than 12 years concurrent. And he was charged with kidnapping and selling undercover officers fake drugs. To my understanding, all of this was curated with intention, and part of some larger goal, specifically surrounding public corruption and fraud, white collar crimes. So when shit got real, I stayed with Dylan the entire relationship, and I sacrificed a lot to be with him, as did, my children were, very close and attached to him. The last maybe 6 months of the relationship were very scary. When Dylan got out and he had to go back to doing those deals, he began excessively using drugs and alcohol and became incredibly physically abusive toward me. He started beating me up, holding me up by my throat and throwing me onto the ground and choking me and kicking me. And there was just a lot of really bad stuff that was going on. When I went for assistance with regards to these issues, they began reframing them as if the abusers were my exes, the fathers of my kids, which is not true. The abuser was Dylan. Dylan was the one who picked me up by my throat and kicked me on the ground, and I threw a vase at him and missed. And there were some other things. If you guys are familiar with nitrous oxide, and that's what makes this so corrupt. Nitrous oxide, you have to get that chemical from a very specific place. It's very expensive. It cost about $2,000 to obtain. He had it on hand like within 15 minutes. So he'd pick up the phone and boom, there would be a huge truck filled with nitrous oxide that would take 2 6-foot-plus tall men with muscles to carry, a tank of this off of the truck and unload this. So there was clearly, a lot of corruption going on. And when I went to parole for assistance, parole said there was nothing they could do, that I needed to go to 555 West Harrison, which I did. I filed paperwork for protection. And rather than hearing my case for protection, they granted him a case for protection against me. And then, curated this reality show and all of this other stuff to blatantly cover up all of the years of abuse that I have endured for the ultimate goal of having a quote unquote castle for my children to live in and for us to retire and, our businesses to thrive. And that would be fitness businesses. Both of us were involved in personal training at the time, he through NESM and myself through NCCPT. And other businesses, marketing businesses. We were both selling renewable energy at the time and making very good money. We were on track to earn more than 6 figures our very first year together, post prison. until the violence began. Now, David Shepard lost his job. It went in front of Internal Affairs, and my claims were substantiated that he was sexually harassing me and extorting me, that he did force me to steal a computer of Jordan Lott and turn it in. And that case wrapped in 2019. Due to the lack of information or the inability to use the evidence that they had acquired because it was unlawful in the way that it was acquired. Since that time, I have been the subject of numerous smear campaigns on the internet and in real life. I have been stalked to my church, to my doctor's office, to numerous different jobs, to, various places that I frequent. The police have refused to pick up a case. I have been sexually assaulted 3 times. I have been jumped and stabbed by 3 women 11 times, bludgeoned by a man, resulting in the need for staples in the back of my head. And my vehicle was stolen and sold at auto auction. As I said, I have been reporting all of this to law enforcement for quite some time, with little to no intervention and no assistance. There's not been another detective assigned. I continue to keep track here myself, in the hopes that in the near future, I know that we do already have the software. If you're familiar with ChatGPT or other forms of AI, I know that the software exists, that it can go through all of the content I've created, silence the nefarious attempts at rerouting the narrative, which occur mostly in the comments and in parody accounts. AI has the ability to silence all of that and to simply listen to what I've reported and assist me in vindication and justice. So I remain hopeful for that day. During this, I met Xavier, and Xavier told me he was taking me to a safe house, that his brother, Carlos Montoya, who works for the ADA, was going to help me in having this case heard. Ultimately, we ended up both being thrown into the street with no protection, and I became pregnant twice. The first time, my children, twins, who were born prematurely and passed away on December 26, 2022. And the second time was Weston. Weston was born February 19th, 2024. He is 7.5 months old now. And we have only been permitted to see him for 6 hours a week since his birth. He stayed with me for 3 days in the hospital, and upon my time of discharge from St. Joseph's Hospital, was separated from me, as they claimed he was taken to protective custody, and Xavier and I thrown back outside into the street. We've gone in front of a judge, we've called 311, we've attempted to seek shelter. They've not assisted us in any way, shape, or form after Tremont. Tremont is Selena the Traveler, which is a boutique hotel that was repurposed for the reasoning of being used as a space for people like myself. Xavier and I were there for 4 months and promised that at the end of 6-month period, we would be matched. Our family, myself, my children, and my child Weston, and my other 3 children, would be matched with a townhome or an apartment to meet my family's needs. After 4.5 months, with no notice, under an hour of notice, someone came to our door and said, "Tomorrow morning, everyone has to leave. You'll need to," quote, "self-resolve." I got dressed. I was in a nightgown pumping. I was only 4.5 months, 5 months postpartum. I was still pumping breast milk for Weston at that time. I got dressed and went downstairs. I asked the staff to please elaborate on what time we would need to be gone by, as we had a visit with our son in Maywood scheduled for that morning. Staff told us, "You know what, sit down here." Refused to allow us back up to our room, and then threw all of our things in an unorganized manner into garbage bags and threw us back into the street and said, "Self-resolve. We won't be helping you with an apartment. We've lost funding," was their reasoning. Now, we've gone by that space numerous times. It's still filled with the same people. So it doesn't make sense. What's going on does not make sense. We've gone in front of the judge 5 or 6 times since that time. I've shared all of this with the judge. We have been numerous times. I mean, too many times to count. We have been lied about or blatantly subjected to fabrications with regards to reality. First and foremost, they are claiming that I did not receive, and I'm not allowed to discuss what they do in court, but I 100% am allowed to discuss the allegations against me that were made by the online harassers and the anonymous reporters to DCFS that would be my prerogative to do, and this is my channel, so I'm going to, but I'm not allowed to tell you guys what they're doing in court, per the judge's order. They've made allegations claiming that I have not received any prenatal care, that I refuse to receive prenatal care, so they're accusing me of negligence. They're making allegations that I have untreated or undiagnosed mental health disorders and that I am not medically compliant. Also not true. They're making allegations that I am, what was the other one, Xavier? Just the mental health, the not having prenatal care, and what else?
I'm sorry, I'm doing something over here.
I'm pretty sure those are the only two. Now, I've already proven those to be false by submitting medical records and a testimony from my doctor. I've shared with you all the letter that my doctor wrote that literally states there is nothing wrong with me, that I'm a great mother, that in the 10 years he's been treating me, I've always been compliant and an active participant in my medical care, that I have an immense amount of knowledge and expertise in my own diagnosing and in the treatment of anything that I've ever needed care for, that my only diagnoses from the past are PTSD, anxiety as a residual side effect of said PTSD, and ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which I've been under treatment of and diagnosed with since I was 18 years old. I'm 37 now. That's 19 years with this diagnosis. Magically, as soon as Dylan came out, that's when all of these other claims came to my mental health and began attempting to diagnose me with another disorder that I do not have. So it's been very interesting because I've proven, as I said, time and time again, that none of this is real, that none of this is true, that these claims that they've made have only newly surfaced since 2020, and that prior to that, never in my life has anyone made these claims, that I've been having the same diagnosis since 18, that I accepted that diagnosis, and that I've been under treatment and care for that diagnosis since that time. My doctor even, as I said, took the stand and said there's nothing wrong with Heather. The state's attorney even took the stand, or not took the stand, but the state's attorney even verified on my behalf outside of court that with the state's attorney who is responsible for public corruption, Wayne Jakowski, public corruption and white collar crimes. They did verify everything that I said with regards to David Shepard, that investigation, and all of the other deals and things of that nature that were supposed to have resolved in 2019 that are still affecting my life today, to this very day. So everything I said was true, and it was proven. On top of that, it's now my responsibility somehow, with all of the adversity that I'm currently facing and still parenting my children to the best of my ability, sending them food and groceries and calling them numerous times a day on FaceTime, and, being, as present and kind as I can to all of these allegations and anonymous forms of harassment. There's just been an overwhelming amount of slanderous defamation and slanderous, verbalizations and narratives and rhetorics that have been coming out. And it's almost like a new one every day. They accused me of giving myself a wire hanger abortion with the twins. I would never do that. My children are my entire life. Whether I'm prepared or not, I believe that you will find a way. God blessed me with children. No man blessed me with children. God made me a mother. God decided that that was my job. So it's been intense. And now, after they threw us out of Tremont, and they started denying us shelter again. So I have a caseworker named Barsha Shaw through Lutheran Social Services, who has been a third party in calling 311 on a regular basis and continuing to get case numbers, and they just keep closing them and saying there's nothing available, which we know is not true. So now I have documented, verifiable evidence that not only during the duration of my pregnancy was I calling for shelter and having prenatal care and following up with multiple doctors and completely compliant medically, but also that there's another third party who is a social worker who can testify to the fact that not only have I been doing so, she's been doing so on my behalf. So it'll be very interesting to see how far this corruption is permitted to go, and I know for a fact that we have the AI already to mitigate a lot of this, to put a lot of this to rest. I was ordered to participate in some sort of a course for drug addicts, people who are addicted to drugs. And I told them I'm not addicted to drugs. I've never had a drug addiction in my life. I'm not really sure what to say or how to feel. But they said, if you don't do it, you can't see your child. So I said, all right, well, then obviously I'll do it, which is another form of extortion. So I did that. It was for marijuana. And so I took drug tests every week or 2 weeks. And they were, of course, always negative because I don't have a drug problem. I have a housing problem. So I finished that last week and just found out very, very few days ago, I believe 2 days ago, Friday actually, that I am done, that I don't need to take that course anymore. And they sent me a certificate of completion. So that class is my Tuesday class. So that was really great to hear, which is why I wanted to use this opportunity. We're in the conference room of my church, the church that I'm a member. And this is actually where I've reserved this conference room for another, I believe, 4 weeks. And so I wanted to make use of the time to record all of my FTRs and update everyone on what's been going on ever since that time. And so that's what we're doing here today. And I'm very grateful to have that opportunity. I do have some things to do this afternoon, before heading into work. And so I'm going to keep it to the, 1 p.m. timeline, which gives us about an hour. But it's been incredibly exhausting to keep track of everything that's taken place. And I truly hope that the AI that is rolling out will make that much easier. I did meet someone who works for an artificial intelligence company who charges approximately $6,000 to run 4-minute scans on the entirety of the person's medical record, prescription history, court documents, and other things. And these are quality assurance scans, and they have multi-purpose. This person uses them primarily for defending companies in lawsuits or potential lawsuits. For instance, if someone were to take a medicine and they end up with cancer or something like that because of taking that medication, the AI technology can comb through the person's history of their medical record and decipher other possible causes of the cancer to protect the company from lawsuit. Well, it can be used in the same way to look for corruption in medical records. For instance, if there is someone who has gotten their medical records crossed, if it's a paper record, like I have one from 2019, I believe, where my chart and a man's chart were combined on accident. AI has the ability to read text or handwriting and weed out that information and say there's a high likelihood of either mistake or corruption in this chart because of X, Y, and Z. So I'm working together with this company. I was promised by the actual CEO, I was lucky enough to meet and have a conversation with about AI, that they would waive the $6,000 fee and actually review my medical records for me for corruption. So that's what we're working on now. It's called an administrative audit. So that's very exciting. There's also a lot that's been reported to different parties that, have connection to this court case, which is non-criminal in nature. But that doesn't matter, if they're using my children in the same way they've been for the last 10 years and now so publicly to extort me into various, or strong arm me into various actions. I need all of the definitive proof of this that I can get. And so a lot of these reports that say things that vary, you guys, they've literally said that I was charged with smuggling 15 grams of cocaine into Cook County Division 6. Never happened in my life. I've never, ever smuggled any drug anywhere. I don't use cocaine. I don't have any history with it. I've never been a cocaine salesperson. I don't have that history. They said I was charged with kidnapping. Never. I have no criminal record. I want to make that clear. I have some traffic things. I have no criminal record. So the AI that they're using and the software model that they're using in the healthcare integrations can very easily be moved over to FOIA-able records. All of this is, very easy to sort through. And the truth will be revealed. It won't be a matter of human testimony anymore. It will be a matter of exact paperwork that will decrypt and tell a very truthful story, a story that human testimony won't be able to untell. So I'm very excited for that. But yeah, those are just a few of the allegations that have been made against me. And my thing is this: none of it's true. But even if that were true, first of all, if I were charged with smuggling 15 grams of cocaine into Division 6 Cook County, I want to mention numerous things. Number one, county jail is a non-contact visit where you are separated by glass with your significant other. So there is no risk of smuggling at all whatsoever. So that's number one. Number two is I never did that. Number three is kidnapping. I'm sorry, what? Number four is they named various things that I supposedly did, such as what was one that they named? Dangerous drugs. There's no charge called dangerous drugs. I don't know what that means. So now I have to obtain manually all of the actual copies of the